Hello, everyone. I'm Hunter B. Gunn. Welcome back to another episode of the Mouse House Podcast. I'm here with a long-awaited interview because I missed their residency. But welcome, Pachi Muruchu, to the pod. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so glad to finally be able to speak with you. I feel like how long has it been? It's been like maybe 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, it's
But
got had to have been at least 3. Feels like it's
yeah,
been a long time. I felt like I was away for like years, but
yeah. I mean, that must be a good vacation, but
yeah, it was
nah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to know about your art because I don't even really know too much about it, but I'd love to know about your art. And so I guess we'll start there.
I mean, I like to think about I guess just general art making, especially these days, as like a cultural labor, because it feels like it gives it maybe the most reason to want to make it, because sometimes it can be difficult to I guess to want to make things. Because I actually when I got to a mod's house, I hadn't made anything since December, I don't believe.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and so I mean, it's been a lot of, I would say, introspection on the front of that question. But I'd say a lot of my artwork revolves around this kind of conceptualizing contemporary experiences of just growing up in New York City and just kind of understanding the larger colonial, racial, and gender dynamics of just, I guess, city living out here, in between Harlem and the Bronx, and kind of adding to my, at least what I like to call, an animistic perspective, which is just sort of like bringing about a kind of indigenous conceptualization of these experiences. Kind of, maybe it's a crude way of saying it, but like mythologizing what it was like growing up in the city.
Hmm.
And kind of seeing what can be elucidated by that act of creating these very narrative images that try and compound time from myths, not even just Andean myths, but also just Muncie myths that kind of reside in the land for millennia. But I guess I think that'd be a pretty accurate way of labeling my work. I mean, there's a bunch of Andean philosophical like premises that exist not even just in the narrative of the work, but I think in the materials and the reason and the way I build up an image. But I think that's a pretty good way to describe it.
Yeah, I would say so too. Your work is very interesting. The I don't even know how to describe it. Just the way it looks to me is so interesting. And so you do like I know you do paintings, you do some charcoal art and wood block prints. And there's this one work in particular, and I forgot which type of work it was, but I was just like looking through some of your work I could find.
Mhm.
And are you a fan of Pokemon by any chance?
I mean, trust, like growing up, that was
Yeah.
everything. Honestly, even into high school.
So I was looking. I like my finger like slipped in some of the in like the thing scrolled up, and I just the corner of my eye. I thought you had
Mhm.
made a piece of art when you were holding a Chikorita. I think
The
is the name of the
Chikorita.
Pokemon. Yeah, it was like a grass Pokemon, like
Yeah.
starter Pokemon, and it looked so much like I was like, oh my god,
No way.
they
Yeah.
love Pokemon. And then I looked back up, and it was a parrot and another animal.
I'm dead.
I was like, oh no. They don't like
I
Pokemon
think I
that
know what
much.
you're talking about. No, I mean, I do love Pokemon. I mean, I do appreciate the the Pokemon call out, actually, because I think the colors lend themselves to that playful character, and also
Mhm,
just the way one interacts with animals. Maybe it can be reminiscent in the kind of bonds that you form, in, like the Pokemon universe.
mhm. And it was just the way you were holding it, because the parrot, you had another one with the same parrot, and the parrot was like on your shoulder,
Yeah.
and then this one you're holding kind of like how I hold.
Oh,
You're holding a
I
puppy and a
yeah.
parrot. I think it's called Wawaku.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah,
it's
yeah. Now
named.
that you, yeah, no, now that you mentioned it, I thought you were speaking of Walki Kuna too, which means brothers. But
Mhm.
Wawagu is that means like little one, give or
Mhm.
take. But it's like it's actually not me in that. I wish that was me.
Oh.
It'd be a beautiful photo. But it was I was actually speaking to a friend of mine recently, and I thought I knew who the photographer was, but I don't know who the original photographer is anymore.
Hmm.
I think the Ecuadorian photographer's name I've lost for like years, and I don't remember his name anymore. But the other photographer who, cause she's also a big fan of Claudia Gosdillo, I believe, and she said she could have sworn that was a Claudia Gosdillo photo. But if
Mm.
it's a Claudia Gosdillo photo, then the child is a Nicaraguan boy from give or take late 1970s, early 1980s.
Wow, that's an
Yeah,
old photograph.
no, and it's a beautiful one, you know. That's why I painted it because I found it, and I painted it while I was at RISD. And
Oh
it's
wow.
I rarely paint people who I don't know, but this is like early. I mean, I guess it'd be late RISD. It was my last semester there, but I was, I didn't have anybody to paint aside from myself, and I just love that photograph. You know, that kid with the with this macaw who honestly does follow with the Chikorita type of like vignette, and then that
Hmm.
puppy. I was just like, it just seemed perfect to put him in like a city landscape, you know, because I think a lot of the young kids, being one of them who grew up in a weird semi-tropical but not tropical Manhattan environment, you know.
He looks like he's where he belongs.
No, I mean, I appreciate you saying that.
So I also wanted to discuss. You brought up a interesting thing. So I sometimes have go into like creative. I don't even know if you're would say you're in a you were in a creative rut. You just weren't making anything.
Hmm.
Um, what usually what usually happens when you're like, okay, to that now I am gonna make something. Either do you force yourself to make something, or do you wait until you find some inspiration?
Ah man, I feel like that's the thing with art making or cultural labor. I feel like it's a constant demand of your own discipline outside of the studio. You know, like
Hmm.
everything I make is just a kind of, in one way, it's kind of an acknowledgement of what my personal subjective relationship to the world is. And so every day is kind of, just existing in the world is an intentional practice where I attempt to behold the subjectivity that I try and paint, you know, and just live it every day. That's, I don't always do it well, you know what I mean? Honestly, in the past 6 months has been a bit more of a falling roller coaster than a rising one, but it's been it's a difficult way to describe inspiration, I guess, when I think you just when at least the way I perceive cultural labor as being like that as a discipline,
Hmm.
which can kind of add a rigidity to it, which I don't think is necessarily the case. I think a discipline can be very fluid as long as it's sort of respectful of what the intentions are, But I don't know. It's tough. I also didn't have a studio, honestly. I was in Brooklyn and I got tired of being in Brooklyn. I was doing like a Brooklyn Bronx commute and it was killing me. And I, applied for school, got into Rutgers, and I was like, man, am I really about to like pay a silly amount of rent in the Bronx when I could just get a studio at Rutgers, which is a free program. You know what I mean? So I was
Hmm.
just like, let me just chill and just like read and get better at machine sewing, get better at wood carving, and just enjoy life and raise my puppy Milugo, who came into my life at the last day of February.
Oh.
So I don't know. Inspiration, I think, just comes from a kind of a discipline that I'm still trying to cultivate in my own life. And I have a studio now, and I've begun like preliminary work on paintings and stuff. But it's I can feel that my own subjectivity is lacking in the world, and so when I feel that lack, I understand that means that's something that kind of exists outside the studio uh, that I need to care for.
Hmm. That's very interesting. I always struggle with the inspirate or finding my inspiration because it's so
Yeah,
fleeting, or it happens.
I mean, because it is fleeting, right? It's such a fickle thing.
It happens at the most random. God. Okay. My throat's trying to fight me today. But
No worries.
what I
Yeah,
was saying is my inspiration for some reason I get inspired by very random things.
yeah.
And the last time I had been inspired, up until last night actually, I've been feeling like I couldn't think of anything to make. Um, but one thing that's kind of like nerdy about, I don't know, it's nerdy, but it's kind of, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
making using my creativeness to make TikToks.
Really?
Yeah, like editing, like me and my friends will like play video games at night,
Yeah.
and we'll like get clips, and then I'll like put those out, and then just for them. So it's like a TikTok basically just for my
Yeah.
friends to like just to check in on like what the group is up to.
Yeah.
But I also really love making like more creative TikToks where I'll like edit these clips together.
Yeah.
Um, and I got this inspiration. I saw this tweet. I guess it's not even called a tweet anymore, but it was a tweet
Yeah.
of a chicken that had this person had a chicken who had died fighting off a raccoon, and it
Jeez.
saved their entire flock, and they were
Wow.
like everyone was hailing it as like a hero.
Yeah.
So, and as soon as I read that, I had like a vision of this other clip from a show of like this hero like protecting the farm, and so I like made a video about that, and that was like my third day in the vacation,
That's
and
beautiful. Yeah.
it got 5,000 views and like
Oh
700 likes, which is pretty
yeah.
good.
I was asking, is so your TikTok is public?
Yeah, my TikTok is public. Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
really? Is it just Hunter Begun? Because I might have to look it up.
I like when people just find it because people do just find
Yeah.
it. I have one video that has gone viral,
I heard.
it,
Wow. Okay, I didn't know this.
and it was a Dragon Ball Z and Fortnite video, um, which is pretty funny.
I'm. I
and,
like that.
and then you heard of G Fuel? It's like this.
Yeah, actually, I've heard of G Fuel so much because
Yeah,
recently got into car review YouTube.
yeah, they
Oh my
sponsor a lot
god.
of car people.
Yeah.
But so my TikTok went viral on there, and then they took it and put it on
Really?
their page. They did credit me, but
They did. Okay.
they
Okay.
didn't have my Instagram. They just had my TikTok, so I didn't
Yeah.
know, and I just came upon it randomly. I was like, "That's my video," and it had like 600,000 views on their
Jesus.
Instagram page, and then
Yeah.
I think it has like 550,000 on TikTok or something.
Oh
So
god damn.
I got a video that had over a million views, and it's like my stupidest video ever. But
I'm dead.
yeah, so I've been chasing that high ever since. Um,
That's crazy, actually. Did you not feel some type of way at all about it, kind of like having to take a different, it's having to leave your own hands, and
that
go
someone else took it.
elsewhere? Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird when I found it. I was like, "What the? How dare they?
Yeah.
It's like, this is
Yeah.
mine."
Exactly, right?
And then I saw who posted it. I was like, "Okay, at least it's like a big brand." And
Okay.
then they did credit me,
Yeah.
but I found it kind of late into like how popular the video was getting
Really?
on Instagram. So when
Yeah.
I commented, I was like, "This video is mine." Not a single person saw the comment
Nobody
and liked
saw
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Damn!" So then I just posted it on my story. Cause like I usually keep that TikTok pretty
Yeah.
private, just for like my
Yeah.
close friends. But I posted my
Yeah.
stories like, "Look, this is my viral TikTok that I have. It's
I'm
got so popular, made
dead.
it to Instagram Reels."
Well,
And
I mean, I guess it's a nice hidden gem for anybody who knows you,
yeah,
you
it's kind
know?
of like an Easter egg. It's like, oh,
It's an Easter egg
you
is a good way to put
know,
it.
you find my
Yeah.
TikTok, and you're gonna be in a world of fun. And then
I'm
I also
dead.
run the Moz House TikTok, which I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure out the proper niche for. We do
Yeah.
better for like when I come up with funny stuff,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's hard to be professional funny, and
I can
then
imagine.
as a business account you're only allowed to do so much stuff, and you have to use a
Yeah.
stupid app called CapCut where they have all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
use all these templates, and they're all so bad, and then
Yeah.
sometimes you find like one good one, so
I need
it's
to
a mess.
I need to check out Ma's house TikTok as well. I deleted TikTok like a month ago because I was just like I have such an obsessive tendency of like once there's something that I can obsess over, I'll obsess over it.
Hmm.
I just on TikTok nonstop, you
It's
know?
definitely can be a huge time waster,
I
but
trust.
so like my friends actually hate it when I send them TikToks they make, because then they're on
Yeah,
TikTok for an hour afterwards.
yeah, no, because then it takes you, man. It's like jumping down a really strong river,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
yeah, my goal for my TikTok though, I want someone to like find my TikTok and be able to see all like these fun moments for the past like
Yeah,
year and a half of me and my friends.
yeah,
Because I live so like 2.5, 3 hours away from most of my friends.
yeah.
They're all in like Westchester
Wow,
County. So
jam,
like
that's full, yeah.
so that's like how we like all stay connected and whatnot. So it's just like our archive of fun times that we've had.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds like a nice little archive of joy, yeah.
Yeah. That. So okay. Enough about my TikTok.
Not
How did
fair.
how did you discover Ma's house?
How did I discover Ma's house? Oh man, a friend sent me the information about Ma's house. It was actually a teacher friend of mine, and
Hmm.
for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. It had, I guess shout out to either Emily or Adina, or even maybe Mikael. I do not remember who it was. It feels like it's been ages, even though it was just in February. But that was around then that they sent me this, and I was just like, actually, this is sick, And it felt like it felt very would be it felt just like very inviting of a potential presence in life, because I don't know, especially for artists in general, applying to artist residencies can be so taxing. Or you just look at the program and you're just like, all right, do I have the energy and do I have the intentions to experience this? But when I saw Ma's house, I was like, man, there's no question about this. Like, it feels like it
Hmm.
would be a very sweet time, which it did become, and especially at the point of my life where I kind of met Jeremy and Brianna that first day. It was, I couldn't have asked for a nicer, experience. So what I mean? Yeah. Before I start rambling.
When I so a lot of people say that they love the mouse house. It's like, but when I checked out, Jeremy put out the things like, oh, open call for the residency. I like checked it out. Although
Yeah.
I work here, I'm like, I never been on that side of things. So I was like,
Yeah.
let me see what this form's like. It was just this Google form, and then said
Yeah.
like, and then everyone's like, yeah, Jeremy called me the next day or like emailed me, and we talked.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting. Like, how often do you get to like just talk to like the president of the nonprofit, and then he's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're coming this, you're in. See you next week.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. It's just like because I see Jeremy as like my cousin, and then people
Yeah.
around town see him as like a celebrity. And I'm like,
Really?
what the? Yeah, Jeremy is. I look like Jeremy, so people think I'm
Yeah.
him, and they'll be like, "Oh
Really?
my god, Jeremy, it's you!"
No
I'm
way.
like, no, my name's Hunter. Jeremy's my
I'm
cousin.
dead. Yeah.
Sorry. Where is Jeremy? I don't know. He's over there, I think. Especially during powwow. They
Oh yeah.
people will think I'm him all the time, and then some of
Oh
my
man.
people on the
Yeah.
res will like introduce me as Jeremy as like, a joke to
Yeah.
people. Say, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is Jeremy, and then I'd be like, no, my
I'm
name's
dead.
Hunter. It
That's
confuses everyone.
yeah. I mean, the res is so intimate,
Hmm.
Like I can only can only imagine, like, because it feels like I imagine Jeremy's probably the probably like the low, like the what's the word? The reason maybe that there's a lot of activity surrounding like ins and outs. Especially like when I was going in and out through the visitor route or
Hmm.
road. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, yeah, it's Jeremy. I'm here because of Jeremy. It's just kind of like I imagine it's like Jeremy's almost like this intermediary between just like people who come from international. You know what I mean? I came from close.
Yeah.
I came from the Bronx, but like I see. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's been heads who even came from like across the ocean. You know what I mean?
I think there's been one person from overseas. There's a lot of people from the West Coast all the time coming from
That they could.
California
I mean,
so
that's wider
often.
than the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Is it? Actually, I don't know if that's true, but
It's a far trip. I just went to California the first time,
yeah,
to LA like in June,
yeah,
and it was like a nice 6.5 hour flight, and that's how long it took me to get to Europe. So
yeah, exactly.
it's far. You have to travel,
And
and
that's far as hell.
yeah. But so you should come to powwow if you have nothing to do on the Labor Day.
I would trust. It's already in the calendar.
Oh, good.
Pulling, pulling up with the friends out here. Trust.
Yeah, it's. I think we're gonna have a booth this year. Well, like
Yeah,
Denise always has a booth. Jeremy's mom,
yeah,
almost always has a booth. But I think we're doing two, like a Ma's house and then the Denise's booth. But
yeah. I'll
we'll
be
see. We're
there.
still
I'll be at the
discussing.
booth for sure. Either
Yeah,
way.
come by. You'll get to see everybody. Everyone looking for Jeremy. But you get to see.
Yeah.
So like it's one of the biggest powwows I think on the East Coast. He might be the
Yeah.
biggest, and that's like where we invite everybody to come in from the outside. So
Yeah.
it's always fun. There's so much stuff to do, but it is definitely a very taxing. After powwow, you're like, oh my god, it's over. I'm
Yeah.
yeah. I'm supposed to be filming a documentary over the next 3 years about powwow.
Oh,
This
really?
is
Oh,
this
that's
yeah, this is
exciting.
my second year, year two.
Oh, yeah.
So
So
and
you're
I'm
gonna be filming
hoping,
this one?
yeah, I'm hoping this year I'll figure out what the documentary is actually about. Um,
Word. I mean, that's how it takes, you know what I mean? It just takes doing it until you discover, a
the
thought comes
narrative,
up
yeah.
while you do it.
The question that I've been asking is, what does powwow mean to you?
Yeah,
It's gotten some results, some pretty good results, but I don't have like a story yet, so we'll see. Hopefully, it
fair.
comes this year.
Well, I mean, actually, I read Shane Weeks' book while I was at Ma's house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. I had it was. I mean, it's so red, you almost can't not see it when you come in the room. And so I saw it like right there in the library. I was like, I've been meaning to read this, and I remember reading one tidbit in it where Weeks goes to Colombia, I think, and speaks about how the territories out there are so much like a res, up here in the
Mm,
north, and it's true, honestly. I think about my own pueblo. I mean, honestly, my pueblo's actually gotten really urbanized these days, but I remember like old memories and just seeing old photographs is just like, and being other locations in Ecuador, it's like there's a similar energy as far as like just like the history of what's happened in a location.
um, I'm getting over a slight cold for everyone that's I'm bothering, but hopefully
And
I can get it all out of there. Um, so I have read a little bit of Shane's work. I haven't read that book, but I read he wrote this book with a few others.
yeah,
I guess it's not really a book, but it's like an extended pamphlet about the story of the Circassian,
yeah.
which is like this boat that that people from the tribe were working on many years ago, and there's this horrible storm.
Uh, I remember what you're speaking about. Yeah,
This horrible storm that crashed the boat, and they made all the native people stay on, and then they cut the line so the captain cut the line so that we'd all die, and then they like claimed that we were
yeah,
all dead, that the tribe had like been gone, part of their plan. But
yeah.
that was such a great, like, the thing they made was so great that after I read it, I was like, okay, I made a whole solo podcast episode of just talking about it. That
Wow.
that little book they had.
Yeah.
Um, so he does a lot of great work, and I think he's making a movie or something. I'll have
Oh,
to learn
really?
more
And it?
about that. I know he has a new social media page has popped up about it
Yeah.
somewhere, but I haven't really looked into it.
Okay, I need to. Clearly, I'm lacking. I gotta be
if
right if
you
there's ever a screening.
Yeah, if you are a fan of his work, you should. You might. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll send it to you on
For
Instagram.
sure. Thank you.
The okay, well, you earlier you mentioned Rutgers. That is where my dad went to college
Oh yeah.
for his MBA, and I'm wondering what you're gonna do there.
Oh man. Well, I'm doing. Well, I guess it's an MFA. Yeah, it's an MFA, right? I never know what these acronyms stand for.
Was
Masters
it
of Fine
Masters of Fine
Arts.
Art?
I
Yeah, yeah.
believe so. Yeah. So I mean, I'm there for that, right? As far as like on the bureaucratic level,
Mm-hmm.
but really, I'm there just to make again. Just to
Mm-hmm.
like make, but also try to understand my position. I think is I guess maybe a chance for like a pedagogical approach to painting because I really want to like I'm doing a teaching mentorship this semester, which I don't fully know what it's gonna be like. I imagine it might be something like TAing, but I'm
Mm,
like I really want to kind of delve into teaching, or at least that kind of pedagogical relation between one with a student and just because I mean, just being at like back at RISD, which is the Rhode Island School of Design, and the teachers who I had there who spoke about teaching, like Jennifer Packer and Aaron Gilbert, it's always been in my head as far as just like teaching as a discipline for the
mm,
studio, especially because studio work can be for a painter, it can be so isolating. You can be alone too
yeah.
much, and it can be, especially if you're not in school and you don't have any crits going on. Like I feel like teaching is a great way to challenge what you're making, challenge your own perspective, and to also always constantly understanding the developing parameters of your own discipline. By just having a bond with a student group, with a student, with what it means to develop a curriculum. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like what I mean. It's like being like the ultimate propagandist. I always loved. I mean, especially when I was at RISD, because I'd say I was a pretty loud kid at RISD. I love the idea of being like a propagandist as a teacher. You know what I mean? Really putting the kids onto stuff that could really, affect them, especially non-white kids
Hmm.
who come from a colonized community of some sort. Because I just think a lot about my own upbringing and how, like, I was like a, I mean, I almost got kicked out of middle school, high school a couple of times. But it's just like this because there's no, you never know what to look for. You know what I mean? And you end up just looking for trouble. You know what I mean? To be a little
Yeah.
corny, but yeah,
Looking, I would call it looking for fun, but then everyone
that's
else
true.
call it looking for trouble.
That is
Um,
true.
so I guess we had different views on it back then. Now looking back in my high school days, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
Man, but I would have done the same. I wouldn't have changed anything I had done. It was so much
I'm not
fun.
100%. I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Also, I think Rutgers is probably got the best bang for your buck. If I was to name
That's
like a
true.
university, you
That's
can.
true.
It is such a good school, and people, all the alumni seem to be doing well. All that
Yeah.
I know. So,
The energy there is amazing. And talk
mhm.
about bang for your buck. Like, it's a free program for the MFA. You know what I mean?
Wow.
As long as you get in, like, you don't have to worry about payments. I think
You
the
know,
second year
that's
you
insane.
know, right? No, just the second year you need to somehow prove to New Jersey that you're a resident, whether or not you actually live in there. But
Hmm.
as long as you can do that, the second year is free as well. So it's just
Wow.
like no, it's beautiful, like the
Hmm.
energy out there. Like when I did the interview, I was like, man, the vibes here from the other students is just like it's kind of what I need, something nurturing. People more focused on the capacity of making or the capacity of being able to relate. You
Hmm.
know, but it's just like that just seems like the biggest thing on people's mind. It's just like constantly entering a state of becoming and being. You know what I mean? Maybe to be a little like woo woo, but I just feel like that was the kind of energy there. And I was definitely at a point where I'm like, what the heck am I becoming? So
Hmm.
I'm excited for Rutgers and for the to make more work. Like I want to make tapestries right
Oh
now.
wow.
Yeah.
What
Like
campus
the
are you gonna
last,
go into? Oh, sorry,
it's
cut you off.
no, no worries, no worries. It's what is it? New Brunswick
Hmm.
campus. So I'm at the Livingston Arts Building is where my studio is at, and it's the nature preserve is right there as
Oh
well.
wow.
So, and I've been trying to do more tree identification, more plant identification, some foraging. So it's just like it feels like a very inviting point in my life, especially because the tapestries. I want to complicate the materials a bit more as far as like not just be oil painting on canvas, which I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like as that being my sole practice, it can be a little boring, and it can also
Hmm.
kind of deny me of certain certain ways of becoming, because the tapestries really, I feel like, help me relate to my maternal side and to that kind of like form of creating objects. So, I don't know. I have a lot of hope for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. It sounds like it's perfect.
Not
I
thank
did.
you.
So you may have answered this next question I was going to ask you, but I was going to say, what is a form of art that you or a new medium that you want to start uptaking or trying? Um,
Oh
which could
man.
be tapestry, but if you'd like to answer something else besides tapestry, another possible medium.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've tapped into tapestry pretty good in the past few months. Like, I've like learned how to applique. I was on YouTube watching this, learning from this Hawaiian lady on how to do a Hawaiian applique. It's amazing. But
Wow.
so I have my good bit of like learning to applique, learning to make tapestries, or just to make fabric objects. So I feel like pretty confident going in. As far as like something new, I was doing natural drawing, but
Hmm.
I also feels like some related to tapestry as far as like feeling more comfortable with it. If anything, I would say wood carving, wood sculpture, and ceramics, kind of mixed media form. Like I see a lot of ancient Andean objects that have like these beautiful mixed media applications. Like it'll be a wooden figure, but the wooden figure will have like shell inlay or metal inlay, stuff like that, or just like it'll have like tiny clothing that was clearly woven for it. I kind of want to do that, but I don't know if I kind of just want to make paintings for now. But on the side, I'm definitely gonna be making carving little figures and making clothing for them probably. I
Wow.
think, and then trying to maybe add little ceramic stuff to them. I don't know yet, but it's in my head. That's why I was just like, just making little people. I think because I just I love the idea of just little people. I guess
Hmm.
just existing in like a space. Like if I say if I were to have like a show or something, and then just in the corner somewhere, it's just like two figures doing something. You know what I mean? You wouldn't even notice them, but they're just like hanging out in the corner of the room. Just stuff like that. Little narratives. To really make a space feel like you're walking into a storybook. Yeah.
Hmm. That is so cool. I literally just did wood carving for the first time
Oh
on Sunday.
yeah.
On Sunday,
Well, was it a personal venture or was this a part of a group
it was
thing?
one of the workshops at Mom's
Oh, was
house.
it? They had a
Yeah.
work. Man, I gotta re-download Instagram. Cause out there it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours for me.
Hmm.
So it's not that bad. I was thinking after doing the program, I guess because I did the collage one, but I was also there for Denise's. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I can come back honestly.
Yeah, you could. I'll
Like
send you some of the pictures of the stuff that some of the other people made because it was
I'd
way
love
better than
to.
mine. But it was a so we carved this like wooden brick, I guess, or wooden, I'm not
Yeah,
sure what they're called. And
yeah,
then we did screen printing. So then we like carve it out, put all this ink on it, and then we printed it on a piece of paper. And that's what the artist does. Jenny, they actually just left
beautiful.
yesterday,
Yeah.
2 days ago.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And but we also had done a natural dyeing workshop a couple months ago too.
You said
So
dying or
this
diving?
dyeing. So this is kind of
Dying.
my
Yeah.
shameless Moz House
Yeah.
workshop plug. If you want to learn
Yeah.
new art ways to do art, follow us on Instagram because we do
Please
have
do.
cool things like that. Um, I would
Yeah,
like
I'm
to
on.
be good at wood carving one day.
It's honestly amazing. I mean, I'm looking at the Instagram right now, and I'm seeing the bandolier bag that Heather made. So beautiful. I'm so glad. Is it still going on? August 13th. This Sunday?
Yes,
Hold on.
it's
I'm gonna
still
have to look at
going.
my calendar after this because I haven't finished my bandolier bag yet.
Dude, they take forever.
They do take
I'm
forever.
just so I missed a bunch like three classes. Came back. I'm like, "What's up, everybody?" Everyone's like, "Where have you been?" I'm like telling them, "It's like, oh, who finished their bag?" Not a single soul had finished their
Yeah.
bag yet. I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" It takes a long
No,
time to make some of this
it does
stuff.
take a long time. I mean, especially when you're having a good time.
Yeah,
'Cause
I'm
the
trying to get
vibes
it
are
done for
great in
powwow,
there.
so I can like
Yeah.
so
Have your
because
bandolier bag.
yeah, because so I could. I mean, I probably won't carry it around, but I'm gonna like put it up on Anthony's stand and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is at $1,000."
I'm dead.
No one's gonna buy that for that much, but maybe
You
someone will.
never know. You
You
never
never
know.
know. And mine's the only kind of like masculine one, I would say.
Oh, really? Interesting. I'm gonna have to. Well, I hope you put it up because I'm gonna have to take a look at it when I pull up.
Yeah. Well, they were originally meant for, I guess women would make
You're
them for
right.
men, and then they would go and use it as like a hunting bag.
Yeah,
So I kind of like took that inspiration, just like, oh, if I made one for myself, this is what I would do.
that's
So
beautiful.
it has a bunch of like different animals,
Yeah,
some bears, turtle, deer, and then it has like these. I took a knife from the kitchen upstairs and traced it
yeah.
on the main part of the bag, and
I
then
love that.
Jeremy came down. I was like, "What are you doing with a knife?" I'm like, "Oh, art." And then
Yeah.
I went down and I just so now it looks like there's like two hunting knives on there. It's
Okay,
coming
that's
out nice.
sick. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm excited to see it. I hope
yeah.
it pops up on Moss House Instagram. If not, I'll be
It
there at the powwow to look at it.
yeah, it definitely might. Once I finish it, Jeremy does like to take a nice pic of my thing.
Yeah,
Although I don't like it being exposed to the world, but um,
fair.
and
It's a
just
vulnerable
I just have to
thing.
get more used to being behind the camera and then
Yeah,
being in front of the camera are
yeah.
so different.
It is.
Um, that I'm not fully used to yet. Like I'm fine with it, but I would like just
Yeah.
I don't know. People just don't care. I don't get it
I
yet.
mean, it's interesting because I feel like originally I went to RISD for to be a photo undergrad. And that weird dichotomy between being the photographer, being the guy behind the camera, and then being in front, it's like what I mean. You feel like you cross your knees a little bit. You're so awkward and tense. But then I
Yeah,
speak to like Jeremy, whose whole practice is like puts on these roles in his photographs that is so that has such a beautiful storytelling quality. I remember he
hmm
recommended me to consider putting myself in front of the camera, and it's honestly been on my mind because I've done a couple self portraits, but but I'm pretty hidden in it, in some
Hmm.
capacity.
Which brings
Um,
up something I did want to talk
yeah,
about so for every artist I've noticed when they start their page, their social media pages, they usually just start with just posting their art or like random stuff. And then
yeah,
and then all of a sudden one day it transitions to
yeah,
it's them and the art, or there's to post a picture
yeah.
of themselves or other people, and it's just always so interesting to me. It's like just one day
I'm
they are
dead.
now in
Yeah,
front of the camera. It's so and it's crazy, just social media. You can like see where people like I don't even know if that you'd call that growth, but and then
I
the
mean it
Instagram
is
becomes
right.
so much more interesting, and they now people are like reaching out to them, and there's all this like I don't know if good stuff happening, but just like more opportunities. I guess people can put a name to the face, or
Yeah,
see who you what you look like, and it just works.
yeah.
Um, it's always just so interesting to me seeing is looking now that because I look at everyone's Instagram. I scroll all the way to the bottom. Some people have like
Yeah.
800 pictures. I'm like Jesus
That's a
Christ.
lot of
I'm
scrolling.
like Jesus Christ. So I go all the way down, and it's always almost I would say maybe one time the first picture is a picture of themselves.
Wow.
Because
I
usually
mean,
just
I
their
mean, it
art.
is revealing, but it's very
Hmm.
revealing. It's so revealing because you're looking at. I mean, depending how the Instagram is, like mine is like 7 years old, 5 years old, somewhere in between there. But it's like you. Now that you say that, I feel a little vulnerable. You can really see who I was. The way somebody shifts,
Hmm.
shifts in life through the kind of archive they've kept of themselves. At least the ones that they've been willing to show, because you do got that archive feature if you want to hide stuff
Oh hell yeah, I
publicly,
hide stuff.
which I definitely have as well.
Yeah. Once I got my grant, I was like, time to hide everything. Um,
Exactly right. Now that you're saying that, I gotta go through my thing again, see if I need to hide anything.
I didn't see anything bad or anything. No one usually does. I just had like weird pictures from when I was like 16 on there.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh
well,
wow.
that's 9
You were
years ago.
16. God,
Yeah.
how 16 was 9 years ago for me too. God damn.
Are you
I didn't even
25?
think about that. I'm 25.
Oh, me too. Look at that.
Oh shit, man, you made me feel old for a second. I didn't think 16 was 9 years ago already.
No, it really every day of my life now is. I'm like, oh, remember when we did this? Like, wait a second.
Right?
Wait a second. I was 20 years old 5 years ago. When I was 20, I was 15 5 years ago. What is happening?
Right, man. I'm
Um,
thinking about 2019 like it was 2 summers ago. Nah, man, that was 4 years ago.
yeah, I just turned 21.
Yeah, god damn.
I think COVID kind of messed up our time frames a little bit,
That is
but
true.
um, is just getting we kind of I feel like now it just goes by so quick. Like every week, it's like clockwork, different stuff
Yeah,
happening,
yeah.
and then I eventually gets my birthday. I'm like, oh god, and then and then I'm just older now, um, which is crazy.
Older but different, always changing, right?
Yeah, older
There's a,
but
there's
different.
a there's a Indian philosophical premise, which is that I don't know. I feel like with Europeans, or at least with European thought, it's a lot of like that the future's ahead or something, right?
Hmm.
You know. But in the Andes, it's that the only thing that's ahead is the past. Like all you can see in front of you is the past, and the future's behind you. You know, like
That's a
that's
very
just
interesting way to
you
look at
can
it.
turn around, but you never see it. It'll always evade you. So all you have is the past. I think it introduced a nice cyclicality to time.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to think about it because you really can never see the future, but you can kind of see your
Exactly.
past.
Exactly.
Huh. God, now I'm thinking about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I got some other questions here for you. Let me pull some of them up
For sure.
real quick.
No, actually, I remember I was in a Kichwa class. What was it 3 years ago now? Don't tell me it's been 3 years. Maybe it's been 3 years. And that's when I first heard about that from this guy named Charlie who runs the Kichwa Hataris, like the one Kichwa radio station out here in New York. And I was just like,
Hmm.
it blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I've been living the opposite way. Like this way makes so much more sense, as far as like calming yourself when it comes to life, or just like really allowing life to not become something elusive. Like when you look at
Hmm.
when what you're looking forward to is not looking forward to is the past. You know what I mean? When you think of it
Yeah,
like that, it's just like I think it opens up your ability to be vulnerable with things a lot more. Maybe. I
that's an interesting way to think about it. During my searches of you, I
don't
came
know.
across this one article It was called Men Reading Radical Books. I thought it was a
Oh
very interesting title.
yeah.
Very interesting title. It was from 2022, I believe, or
Yeah.
2022. And honestly, well, was reading through it, and the only question I had in my mind is, do you have any radical books that you think people should read?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, geez, there's so many. I don't know that you bring up the article makes me laugh because I it was John. I'd met the guy who wrote it, John Yao. I didn't know who John Yao was at the time. Not neither did I know how he looked, and I felt like everybody was like so like I don't know. They were like it felt like there was a presence in the room, but I didn't understand whose presence,
Hmm.
you know. And then, but he was just such a great conversator. And then, but I had to like break the conversation early because I really had to go pee, and my friend really had to go pee. But I don't know, it's low key a regret that I didn't speak to him for longer because he seemed like a very intuitive person. And I think the article really shows. I think a really a nice intuitive approach of the work that when I read it, I was like, I really appreciate that he even wrote this. I was just like pretty gassed. I was just
Hmm.
like, damn, like I feel very fortunate. And but yeah, I don't know. Like I'm thinking like the books that were in that show when he blessed me with his presence. It was what book? One was a painting of myself. Uh, reading what was it an Incan account of the conquest of Peru by a former Inca emperor, and that
Hmm.
book was foundational for me. Just because I had I'd read a lot about the fall of the Inca Empire, and that's just like a whole the inter-Andean politics of the Inca Empire is like so fascinating. I've really been diving into it, especially for my own. Especially think of like because where I'm from is encompasses the Cañari Nation, and like that whole political spectrum of what the Cañari and the Inca were like back in the day was like so crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. I think it depends because I feel like from a native or Andean folk, like I think I've been reading a lot of animistic texts. Like I love this book, Microbes and Other Shamanic Beings by Cesar Giraldo Ejera, I think. I think it's his name, but his book on kind of trying to do. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not an academic, so I don't know how to validate something academically. But the book itself, as far as just like a going back in time and trying to understand how indigenous people had a relationship to the microbial life through mythologies and through rituals, whether or not they called it microbes or not, and how also just the way I think Europeans kind of have misinterpreted and also kind of misunderstood um, indigenous belief structures as being very metaphysical, despite indigenous people as having very materialist uh, ways of conceiving or philosophizing life. Not honestly philosophizing isn't feel like the right word, but you know what I mean. Like as
Hmm.
opposed, like if you think of, like the idealist versus materialist dichotomy, that I feel like a lot of times anthropologists have, or at least in popular culture, Native people often get put into this weird idealist spectrum, despite our belief structures being very materialist and grounded on land relationships. So that book I
Yeah.
think is just like really it's a bit heady, I ain't gonna lie. Like it's like I needed to have the dictionary next to me when I read it, just to be sure I understood everything. But I would honestly recommend that to anybody interested in animism, or at least understanding, maybe the linguistic troubles that we have to go through to understand our own cultural upbringings and legacies. I also think of like Inca cosmology in the human body is a really good one for anybody interested in Andean. I mean, it's Inca, but I think a lot of because of the empire, a lot of these belief structures kind of got embedded throughout North and South. But Inca cosmology in the human body, I think there's a good text. I think also Blood of the Land by Rex Weiler on the AIM movement is a really good book. As far as just like incredibly well researched, incredibly well. described like you'll come out of there like wanting to kill somebody, man.
Oh
Like
wow.
after reading that book, I was, you know what I mean? Like you get left with so much anger, but you know what I mean. But it's, it's not like it makes you want, because it's organized by the AIM movement. It helps at
Mhm.
least you can at least conceptualize what to do with that anger, considering how the AIM movement organized. Anything by Huey P. Newton. To be honest, Huey P. Newton's amazing. Honestly, any artists out there, I would also recommend um, Mao Zedong's The Yinan Forum is a really good book on aesthetics. It's like they did a forum on aesthetics during the Chinese, I think during the war with Japan. Really good for aesthetics, just aesthetic philosophy. And I would also recommend Amiri Baraka's Black Art and anything by Amilcar Cabral. You know what I mean? Like those incredible communist figures who like really, really who did something. You know what I mean? Who like proper led their people to an autonomous future. So I would always anything like somber, which can be like Blood of the Land. I think it's always good to have something that you can also experience joy with should be like maybe an Amilcar Cabral text, where you realize that, things can happen in our lifetime, or at least we can affect something, you know what I mean? Mumia
Yeah.
Jamal, another great writer. Um, yeah, I think I could come up, George Jackson, Blood in My Eye. I did make a painting with reference to that. That's also an incredible book. But yeah, I don't know. I think I could maybe add another 30 minutes to this podcast as far as like book recs go, because I have like, especially because of Anne. I don't know if y'all up north feel this way, but there's like there's this I feel there's this constant tension with literacy. And I'm not to say that I'm against literacy. I think literacy is an amazing and beautiful thing. But for a lot of cultures who are so principally oral, it's the kind of things
Mhm.
that it's an interesting relationship that these cultures, I mean, just once books are involved and how they take away from a cultural understanding or like a cultural subjectivity of how to interact with the world. Once you introduce books, I think that, and I mean, once you've already undermined the whole autonomous structure of a cultural group, and then you throw books into it, you really kind of kill off rituals in a way. Because books, you don't really need rituals to inherit things anymore. You can just write a book, and then the inheritance is there. You know,
That is a
there's less
very
of a
interesting
need.
way to think about
You
that.
know, but I'm not against literacy. Just can't quote me saying that I'm anti-literacy movement. My own grandparents, they were benefactors of the what do they call it? Alfabetización or something, or the literacy movements up in the mountains in Ecuador. It's a good thing. I mean, it can be heavily propagandized, and one could be
Mm.
critical of how it's done. But reading is amazing. You think of like Ho Chi Minh out in Vietnam, teaching them how to read Marx. Like, it's incredible. As far as
Mhm.
like it grants you, you know what I mean, what it is, because we are disjointed. Now that we have books, it's to our benefit to reach out to these inheritances. These objects of inheritance to see what we can do with it. So yeah, I know
Yeah,
not to go crazy, but yeah, it's a big topic for me.
it is. I totally understand what you're trying to say about the because Native Americans have an oral history for about everything. That's we
Yeah,
used to keep our history, and it's kind of how I came up with the podcast idea. Is like it will be kind of like an archive of all the artists went through like an oral history instead of us writing it down. And there
exactly. No,
was
I mean, yeah.
yeah, and there
No,
was
keep going.
a time where all of our stories had kind of been lost, or a lot of them had been lost, and most of them are still not even written down for like so the older generation now, the elders, a lot of their stuff
Yeah.
has not been written down. So I went ahead and I've been trying to get as many stories as I can recorded um,
Okay, that's beautiful.
to keep the oral history alive because that is like books are great, and
They
but there's
are the
also the
archives.
oral history as well, 'cause that's how it used to be told, and that's how
Yeah,
we used to do it. And
exactly right.
even recent oral history, like the Indian schools and stuff like that, or what
Exactly.
happened right before, like my grandparents' generation. Like I don't really know
Yeah.
what happened there, per se. Besides people telling me what happened, like we don't have a written
Yeah.
history of it. How else is anyone going to know unless
Yeah.
the ones that are still around are willing to tell everybody?
Yeah.
So it's been kind of one of the missions for me, at least now that I've started, gotten good at recording and stuff. and asking the right questions to the elders
Yeah,
to get them to open up a little bit and tell us what happened.
yeah.
So I completely understand what you mean by that.
Mm,
Hopefully that
I mean,
helps. If
that's
anyone was like,
beautiful.
"Oh God, you're against reading. How could you?"
No, of course
And
not.
hopefully that helps clear things up of
No,
what
yeah.
at
I mean,
least what
actually,
I think you meant. Because
I mean,
you
this
are
is
definitely a big reader.
no, definitely. I mean, I'd be such a hypocrite if I hated books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's not to like worship books either, you know, because you got to go out
Mhm,
into the world and experience it in order to really comprehend a lot of these things. Which is
mhm,
what's so beautiful about oral, like our cultures that were predominantly oral, is that it was coupled. Orality wasn't. It's just not the nature of the tongue. You know what I mean? It's
mhm,
everything. Everything, like a whole oral storytelling encompasses everything. You see the individual there. You know what I mean? You can smell. You're participating in a bodily experience in which language is only like supporting it. You know what I mean? So the focus on oral isn't even entirely true. You know what I mean? Like it's just this total sensory experience that we've kind of like that at least the way you've just spoken about the podcast, that we're inheritors of and that we're trying to figure out a way to maintain it. You know what I mean? There's this
mhm,
there's this this producer, this musician who my friend Nika had put me on to. I know they go by Chuki Mamani now, I believe, as far as like musically, but I love their interviews when they were under Alicia Crampton. And I definitely recommend anybody to read um, uh, those interviews. They're beautiful, but they had this one beautiful segment talking about this kind of topic about orality, just like how in the Andean world the written word was like it was just so alien. I think Constance Classen, this academic over Indian history, described it as like once the written word was introduced to the Andes, it kind of like disembodied language, because for
mhm,
us, for oral people, you know what I mean. Language was something that was contained in the body and then expressed into the world. You know what I mean? It was something bodily, something that was reserved into the natural realm. You know what I mean? But books kind of took that away, disembodied language into an object, you know. And so this is I don't know. It's just such a beautiful topic. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be going in circles here, but like we just had such an incredibly complicated way of describing our world before writing. Which not to say writing's bad again, but like it's just
I
the capacity of how we can relate to the world.
yeah, it is a big reason why a lot of native languages are lost. Is
Yeah.
definitely because we had to learn to read and write English,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then if we're trying to learn a new language, you don't want to get distracted by your other language, and then so now we have to relearn it.
Yep.
Um, which there's all these classes about now of like
Yeah.
reteaching how to speak and to bring in like oral storytelling. There's so many different facets and nuances to it,
Yeah.
especially in person, because you can half the information you get when you're talking to someone, even
Yeah.
during like a remote podcast, we aren't getting all the nuances of things we're saying to each other, so we can't see each other's facial
Yeah.
expressions and our
That's
body
true.
language. And as someone who has a very animated face, um, and so like I love watching movies because you can like really like
Yeah.
see the nuance. And in the books, to me, you have to really, really try to get the nuances and think about it. Like when you're talking to
Yeah.
someone and someone like says something, it's like, oh, they actually mean this, or they're being
Yeah.
sarcastic. When you're reading a book, they have to be like, sarcastically, they said this. You just miss
Yeah.
out on intuitive, like your brain intuitively knowing things. When reading, you have to think about it. What do they actually mean?
Yeah.
In oral history you get a little more on like the voice tones going up and down, voice
Yeah.
changing, and in person you get to see all these different things and nuances, which I always thought was so cool, which is like one thing it's great about using the camera and
Exactly.
stuff. We could definitely people could definitely takes a whole other we need a whole other podcast just to talk about this type of stuff,
Yeah.
honestly. um
Honestly, man. No, because I feel like filmmaking, especially, is just like a great inherent. I don't know, maybe this is a bad way to describe it, but I definitely feel like filmmaking, on some capacity, on like it's like the material itself's capacity for like inheriting almost that storyteller role because of
mhm.
how, you know what I mean? Because of exactly what you just said. Like, it's just such a great way to just like people come around together to watch something and experience a story, not too unlike what it must have been like back in the day, you know. But maybe that's being a little romantic, and also just love movies.
I mean, honestly, so one thing about like especially for amateur filmmakers like
Yeah,
myself, um the picture, no one cares. Like if the picture quality isn't great or you shoot a scene at a weird angle or it's a little shaky,
yeah,
people like sticklers may notice. But you know what
yeah.
everyone's going to notice if your audio is bad.
That's
Everyone
true.
will know. That'll be everyone's first thing. I can't hear it. What the hell are they saying? Why is it all
Yeah,
scratchy?
yeah,
Everyone cares. They don't realize, but they care so much about audio and what they can
yeah,
hear. Even doesn't matter
yeah.
what they're seeing. If they could hear it and still get the point across, they'll be able to understand.
No,
It
that's true.
and so that's something that as someone who has supposed to wear hearing aids, I
Yeah,
always struggle with.
yeah,
I put things too loud sometimes, and then it's like too much. So
yeah,
I usually had to like send it. I like now I've kind of figured out like so if it's loud for me, it's really loud for the people, and
yeah,
if I can hear it, then it's just then it's good. It will be loud. People can just turn it down a little bit, which is what I do. I just
yeah,
like, if it's a little loud, that's fine. People can just turn it down a little bit. At least people who can't hear very well will be able to hear it.
yeah.
Um, so which
No,
is it goes into the
no, I
oral history.
appreciate that. No, yeah, I really appreciate that perspective because that's true. You know, there is such a like a. What I remember hearing this old saying, something about like I think something about like you know when you're in the womb, all you do is hear. You know, like that's the first
Hmm.
sense that's really activated when you're in the womb. You know, you don't see anything. You're not even necessarily touching something. I mean, maybe you're swimming in this like womb, but like what you're really doing is you hear the world before you even come out of. You come into it. You know, you just hear it. There is this like wisdom that comes with ears that I think that a lot of cultures really do put an emphasis on because it's true. It's kind of our first introduction into the world, and a very just a very it's one of it's an intimate bond. I
For
don't know.
sure. When I think about my ears, and like hearing stuff,
Yeah.
and because this very off topic what we're talking about at this point,
No.
but it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. That's this sometimes what happens in the Monsters podcast. But when I was doing all the tests for my ears, I
Yeah.
learned about how the brain like audio like processes audio and how some people will hear something and then the brain just says it's something else.
Yeah.
um which is luckily not what happens to me. I just don't hear things. My brain fills, but what's amazing is my brain will fill it in with something out of its
Yeah.
context clues automatically.
Yeah. And does
So
it?
I could miss something, but I'll still
Yeah.
hear something. It's so weird how
Oh,
that
I get what
works.
you. Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah.
I just hear something. It just I don't hear it, but I hear it. It's so weird, but it still works. And then subtitles. We need to stop talking about it because I because we're gonna talk about it forever. There's
I
so
know.
we've opened a whole can of worms with the
I know.
freaking
With
what books are radical
yeah, but
question.
look, it's a radical question, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's how you know it was a good question. All
That's
right,
true.
I'm gonna try to steer into a different direction because now we are about to hit an hour, and I still have some multiple questions to ask. So, in my some more of my research about you, I noticed there was a Reddit page that some it was a museum Reddit, and someone posted one of your pictures or one of your paintings on it,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and it got people liked it. People were
Oh,
upvoting it.
I'm glad.
Um, I thought that was so cool. Like someone just randomly found your art and it was just like, look at this. It was so cool, and then just put it up.
That's very sweet.
Yeah, I just want to tell you about that, and I also
No,
want to ask you if
thank
that
you.
was you. I was wondering, so
Nah.
no.
No, man. I'm googling it right now as we speak.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Bill Sabab. I appreciate that they. Yeah, looks like they would have to have been at the gallery and seen it. So I really appreciate that they would be so kind as to do that because it is sweet. I mean, you know what I mean? Like oftentimes it can be like a vacuum chamber, especially with paintings because you're so reliant on somebody to see it. You know, talk about sound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very reliant on sight, and so it's always. Thank you for letting me know about that. I don't. Admittedly, I like to I like to believe I wouldn't do that, but you know, I did have a Reddit, and it is no longer active. I was, like I said, I have like obsessive tendencies, and
Mm-hmm.
like with TikTok, I was definitely obsessed on Reddit at a certain point. it was silly. But now I had to delete it like I deleted TikTok because I need peace in my life.
That's fair enough. But it is cool that people out there are talking, are trying. It was like they thought it's like this was so profound to them that they put it on their own stuff and want other people to see and experience it. I just think that's interesting.
No, it's.
Um,
I mean, sometimes I just feel silly making something, and then in a moment like this, I'm like, I guess it's not that silly, huh? You know?
hmm I feel that. Yeah, that's how I feel all the time. But
Yeah.
it's kind of part of the fun. It's like, oh, well, if I'm feeling silly making it, then at least I'm having a little bit of fun. Um,
Exact. That is true.
yeah. Okay, so let's dive back into art a little bit, and I guess why don't we use that painting that
Yeah.
they showed? Um,
Yeah, they did get the title wrong, unfortunately,
yeah,
but
Untitled. I think I could probably find that title myself. But so what are some of your processes making art like this?
yeah. Oh man, that's it's the two paintings we've spoken about have all been like the first two paintings that have started everything that I make. Funny enough, the Wawagu and this untitled piece, whose actual name is Kayachari, was it Kayachari Nukansi Takanga, which means tomorrow land is our will be ours. I
Yeah,
forget. My Kichwa's not that good, but it's actually the title comes from this Kichwa revolutionary leader called what's his? Oh my God, Dakilema is his last name. Let me see. I definitely wanna speak his whole name. Um, oh my God, Dakilema, Dakilema. I'm actually shocked that his wiki's not coming up. Oh, there we go. Fernando Dakilema Ruiz. He he died in a Purua uprising in the late 1800s, and so the painting was titled after him. Um, and I mean, think about the processes of it. I mean, that's like early. I mean, obviously, I've always loved books, and there's a book in that painting. But I think maybe the best way to speak about it is maybe colors, because I've
mhm,
always like I'm wearing my grandfather's poncho on that in that painting, and ponchos are probably my first introduction to understanding color. Like as a painter, color is always like such a it can be very annoying. Like where do you take color from? And I think as a young undergrad. I was just like what do I do with color? Like how do I make a relationship to color, and how does a painting relate color wise to something? And like thinking about indigenous cultural labor, like it just became so obvious to me after I was wearing my poncho one day. I'm like, you could just make a painting based off like in a decorative way. Like it almost like I feel like a lot of people know Matisse's cutouts. His cutouts are all inspired by Polynesian quilt making. I think Tahitian to be specific. And so a lot of his colors and forms are all based off that. And so and I love Matisse's cutouts. And I was definitely thinking of Matisse's cutouts when I was looking at a lot of textiles. And so I started to base a lot of my color theory, or at least a lot of my colors, through just like I look at a punch or I look at a anak or I look at a pollera, I look at whatever quilt or like especially Dene textiles are so beautiful. The colors on Dene textiles are amazing. Look at that, and I'll just try and base a painting off at least base like the groundwork of the painting's colors off that. And that Kayachari one that's on Reddit is one of the first ones I did that with. And I always started painting like on a base color, almost in a way like in this it's almost like natural dyeing, which is why I started natural dyeing. Is you just start off with one original color upon which every other color is dependent on and relates to. There's a couple Andean philosophical tenets that I like to think of whenever I think of color, and there's Aini, Ukui, and Tingui. And to be relatively brief, Aini is kind of like the union. It's kind of like reciprocity is a union of things together to create uh, a working, functional being. Or I mean, it's kind of difficult to describe, but it's like when two. I can say when two things come together, but really that's Tingui. When two things come together and become one, it's like this. It's like this meeting of not necessarily harmonious things into one thing. That's Tingui, and I love because I love dialectical materialism. I think Andean philosophy and dialectical materialism have so much potential as far as like sibling philosophies. because it's the same materialist analysis of the world, and Tingui has so much to do with dialectics, with contradictions, with this kind of like the way, like this qualitative change in matter into into a new thing by the meeting of things. Like you think of like, I feel like when you think about time linearly, like decomposition, like death, but death is
Hmm.
never death, because you kind of decompose, and that decomposition brings about life in a new change of matter. You know what I mean? Like maybe Tingui is that. I'm kind of like maybe talking on my ass a little bit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this podcast, but as far as just like the, these philosophical terms have so much to do with qualitative changes in matter, which I love, but also like the fact that matter is still, it's not static, it's always changing, but it still has structure to it. And Aini is kind of like the structural force. It's like I think when they think of like the family unit, Kariwarmi. Well, Kariwarmi can is also like it can mean several things. Kariwarmi can mean an Aini union of man and woman, as far as just like a reciprocal relationship that flourishes. Kariwarmi also has a queering relationship, as far as like existing beyond a specific gender dynamic. But Tingui, like I said, is the meeting of not necessarily harmonious things into one thing. And then Ukui is this not always visible, at times visible, but permeating life force in everything, you know? And so I feel like when I think about color, when I think about painting, I'm always thinking of these three things. As like trying to trying to relate color under these tenets, you know what I mean? Which is why I love natural dyeing. Because like once you dye this fabric, like it literally becomes the underlying life force. Because you're literally borrowing the plant's life force to create this color, and then you're even thinking about like the woven structure that's being dyed also comes from cotton, because I use cotton and linen. Um, comes from that plant, and so it's this constant relationship with life forces. When I think about like the materials of a painting, but I mean, I also think about like the technical qualities of how you create a figure, which I mean could be another very long answer because I feel like I've also done quite a bit on this one. But like, I guess just to speak on that level, but like, I think of I do think a lot about form as well as like the way in which something is painted, which I think honestly comes a lot out of Rizdi. Like Rizdi really showed me formal qualities when it comes to painting. Like Rizdi's a really figurative painter's environment. But
You're such I don't know what the word for it is, but the way you think about, like, I would never think about the borrowing the life force of the from the dye that we use on linen and stuff, but 100% that I would agree that we're basically taking the color, and if
yeah,
I feel like color is kind of like a metaphor for like life in a way. So you
exactly.
see
Right?
life in color, so we're kind of
Color's a
taking
life
this
force,
life.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, think about the wood carving you were doing, right? You're making an art. You kind of like you're taking this tree who was alive and using its life force. All those, imagine all those seasons of water, all those seasons of struggle that it probably went through, the bugs that probably try to crawl into it, and there you are with it in your hand, and now you have this kind of responsibility. It's like, all right, what is this next? How am I going to utilize your life force? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of cultures, I think, have that understanding, and which is why so many of our cultural objects are so beautiful because they understand like this intense responsibility to the world as far as like making an object.
Yeah, I think if more people in America thought about that, or even I guess around the whole entire world, the modern world, people thought like that, we'd have a lot more resources, not just
Trust.
wasted and whatnot. Yeah,
Trust,
maybe one
man. If
day.
only one day,
Yeah,
in our
this
lifetimes, I'd love to
podcast,
believe. Yeah.
another step in the right direction is people listening to this podcast being like, you know what, this guy sounds right to me. This makes sense.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
hope, man. I try and make
yeah,
sense. I feel like I'd be rambling a little bit.
absolutely. That's why we have. If when I go back and I listen to everything, if it's a little anything, if you said anything that's like really like, oh God, I will. I always bring it back.
No, the anti-literacy might get you a bit.
No. Oh, and you could curse all you. I've said a couple bad words on
A
here
word?
already, but
Alright,
or
bet.
bad words. I don't. We don't have
Yeah.
any
We don't.
age
There's no moral
restrictions.
qualitative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want people to be like, oh, I can't curse. So I have to think of other language that I usually use, because like it's so that they can just. say. No one wants to
Yeah.
like have to struggle to find the right words to
Yeah.
how to describe because they can't say what they want.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I think I got two more questions for you. We're nearing since we've gone a
Beautiful.
little long. Okay, so first one is is there anything that I should have asked you about?
Man, I don't know. I feel that's it's a tough one because I feel presumptuous. I'm like, man, I'm like, damn, what could one have asked me? I don't know.
It's
You
like
asked me how I was. That was nice. I think before we even started this, which is sweet.
you
I think
know,
that's a bait. That's one we can always hope for is a question like that.
so one funny thing about that is I was thinking I should stop doing that because
Really?
everyone else that I watch, which I usually don't watch podcasts because I feel like
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to like steal anyone's ideas and stuff. I want it to be like
Yeah.
original.
Yeah.
But there is this one like the most popular show that's kind of a podcast to think of is like Hot Ones. You ever seen
Yeah.
that before?
Oh, I know what you're talking about with the wings. Yeah.
Yeah, that dude never asks anybody how they are when they start. And I noticed that he just goes, "Welcome." He says like but he gives him like a really nice introduction, and then
Yeah.
he goes, "Eat your damn wings," basically, or asks like a crazy question.
Fair.
Um, and I was so I was like, "What the heck? Why don't why doesn't he ask people how they are?" So I was gonna try that out, but it just didn't feel right, especially
I
since I
mean
didn't
to
really know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean to be fair, I feel like just the formal quality of that dude's work. Like the whole point is like, let's get to the wings. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
why wait any longer? Like the whole point is they want us to watch to us suffer and speak while we eat these wings.
True.
So it's kind of like, but I don't think you have like that you know what I mean? That's constant consuming goal of
Hmm.
needing to get to that point quick. You know what I mean? But you know for a fact like he was chatting them up beforehand. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
They already got the formalities over. But the
Yeah.
thing is, it didn't feel formal. You know what I mean? Obviously that question's formal, but we were speaking for a good bit before we started this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think if anything, that's like the best part of like speaking, because I haven't really spoken to you aside from email. But speaking to somebody new is just like exchanging that energy with somebody who's willing to be reciprocal. So that question is always great. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a cop out, but maybe that's my answer. Because I can't think of anything else. We've spoken about so much.
If you say no, that means I did a good job. So
That's
yeah,
true.
but I think you kind of answered one of my questions though. Is should I keep it in the asking people how they
Yeah,
are when it starts?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a great primer for both people because you get to see how this person answers that question.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And then that person gets to see like how this question begins your bond with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like that's kind of like the stick we're breaking. I don't. Is that
Hmm.
even a saying? I don't know if that's a saying. But you know what I mean? But like that's kind of begun our bond.
Hmm. I mean, no one said I'm not doing well, Hunter. How dare you ask? So I'm waiting for the day
Yeah.
though, and I'll be like, "Oh, what's on your mind?" And then that could be a whole different podcast. But
Right. Well, I mean,
I do care. I
maybe I could be a little honest
yeah.
with that. I had an okay day. I got a haircut. It was nice.
Oh, nice. I need a haircut
I
so bad.
Oh my God, I needed it so bad. Trust. I felt like $1 million afterwards, and plus I love the lady who cuts my hair. She's very sweet. I've been going to her for like almost a year now, and
Oh,
she's
you have a woman cutting your hair?
well, not like a private hairstylist or anything like that. Like, just this lady at a hair salon in near the Bowery who I go to.
Interesting.
Yukari, shout out to Yukari. She blesses me all the time. Look, I grew up with like terrible hair, all the terrible bowl cuts as a kid, and
Mm,
like I need somebody who I can trust. Somebody who I could probably lay, what I mean, give my most vulnerable self to, and that's
yes.
Yukari. I appreciate her.
So I am this. So this is gonna. We're gonna talk about this the haircut situation now. You've
Yeah.
brought it up.
Yeah.
So I am someone who am very like I don't want people touching my hair they don't trust, and I will go out of
Yeah.
my way to find the perfect barber for myself. I'll go to like a new shop, and go to like
Yeah.
each barber once and get the same haircut. And whoever
Yeah.
does the best job becomes my barber.
I'm
And
fucking
then I
the
don't leave them under any circumstance unless something
yeah.
like I move or something.
Yeah.
And so I
And then you have to do
found
that game again.
yeah, and this I found perfect barber. The only problem is he took a long time.
Yeah.
He take so I do like a fade, like a mid fade or whatever,
Yeah.
and he would take like an hour and a half. But this man was an artist when it came to the hair.
Yeah.
And there, he would have like a monocle thing so he could zoom in.
No
He
way.
had a special headlight that he'd have. So he'd go in. So he had like his own. He got a ring light and a special headlight
Yeah.
they'd wear on his head. None of
No
the other barbers in the
way.
shop had that.
No
He,
man, is that's crazy.
yeah, he would like take a magnifying glass. He would shave my beard like one hair at a time to get the perfect lineup. It was insane. It would take him so long now, but I like I'd be like first I was like, bro, what is taking so long? Because I don't like to look in the mirror until after it's done.
Yeah.
Because then I get
No,
stressed
same.
out. Because I'm like, oh
Same. My
shit.
eyes are closed the whole
Yeah,
time. I refuse to look.
yeah. And then I looked at it, I was like, this guy's pretty good. This guy's a damn
Yeah.
artist. This guy's an artist. His name is Steven.
That's
But
Steven. Shout out to Steven, man.
yes, that was but now he's so the barber I was going to is 5 minutes away. He
Yeah.
moved to another barber shop in West Hampton, 45 minutes away.
Oh man, you gotta
And
do it.
yeah, so now so right before I was gonna there's other barbers in the shop are good. So I went there
Yeah.
and I gave one of them a try.
Nah, I didn't do it.
And he was not it was okay. And then I went to Boston for a day to
Yeah.
see Drake and my friend's like, "What's wrong with your barber? He
I'm
didn't blend
dead.
he
You
didn't
went to the
blend your."
Drake concert?
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, I
The
did.
blended.
My friend had was gonna go. This is a whole funny story, but I won't go
Yeah.
into it. But my friend was supposed to go with some of other friends,
Yeah.
and they had this whole falling out.
No way. You
Yeah,
got
and
blessed
he's
with Drake tickets?
yeah. So me and one of my other best friends, like we all went to like middle school together
Yeah.
in high school. We all like drove down to Boston and met with our friend Robert,
Yeah.
who gave us the Drake tickets, and we went there. And then the next
Party
day, I went
blast.
home, or
Yeah.
that night, I drove back home, and then the next day, I went to Portugal.
Oh
So I cut it a
wow.
little close, but I got a haircut that day,
Yeah.
and I clowned on like, why didn't your barber blend your hair? I'm
Nah,
like, bro, I
bro.
don't know. It's
They
not my
got you.
yeah, and it wasn't even bad. It just compared to the other
No,
guy, he was
I mean
nothing.
compared to the artistry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a
So now,
monocle, like are you playing around with
no,
me? Like
no,
I'm never leaving you. You
yeah.
treated me so right, you
The
know?
only problem is it is expensive because of the area.
Don't I mean they're gonna talking about expensive. I'll be straightforward. I put 120 down on mine.
On your haircuts, 120.
Yeah. Is that pricey? I don't know anymore.
Okay,
What, are you
well,
doing like 200?
no, no, no. I was doing $60, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. I was like, yo, this is different. Because I'm
To
just
be
like,
fair, I mean to be fair, maybe you get haircuts more often than me. Me's like every 3 months or so.
oh, I would do it. I like to go at least once a month.
Once a month? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that is pricier than me, like
yeah,
through a year budget.
yeah. So I used to. So you know where like Austining is and stuff over there,
Say
and
again?
like
Where?
Austining in New York.
Nah.
No. Well, in
I
like
don't know that.
Westchester, there's a bunch of
Yeah.
like a lot of Hispanic populated areas, and they
Yeah.
give the best haircuts in Westchester.
Where?
Because and so the reason I go to this other barbershop in Southampton because all the other barbershops are mostly white men doing haircuts,
Yeah.
and I don't want any of them touching my hair because they don't know how to do fades.
Trust.
But at least none that I can find yet.
Yeah.
So, but in like Austining, you give them $25, and they'll do like everything perfect. They'll do all the shaving. They'll do like the towels and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm used to. And then I go to Southampton, $60 for
Yeah.
a
But
fade
yeah.
and a beard shave, beard trim. And
Yeah.
it was like a damn culture shock. Like I don't know, but
But are you telling me that the heads out there in Ossing are doing it as good as the monocle guy, Steven?
they're doing it well. They're doing it very well,
Okay.
very serviceable. I have
Yeah.
no complaints with them. Besides using the hot towel around my face, and it feels like I can't breathe.
Yeah.
It's like the
I'm the
towel's a little too hot,
getting
and I'm
waterboarded.
and then they put the steam on you when you're like your nose is
Nah, they're
just out.
actually waterboarding you,
Yeah.
man.
I was like getting all anxiety ridden in the chair, and my
I'm
friend's there. He's
the
like dying laughing because I'm like twitching
You're
around in the
fighting for
chair.
your life, yeah.
Yeah, getting a haircut is sacred too, man. So it's like a whole thing
It's
for
very
me.
sacred.
Yeah,
No, it's sacred, 100%. Although I gotta say, I've always longed for that kind of. I mean, I don't know if you're going to like a barber shop that's like men's, you know what I mean, like a pretty, where like men are at. I've always just gone to like honestly, I've always just gone to like a Japanese hairstylist,
A
and it's
Japanese
just like
hairstyle?
it's
That's
pretty
so interesting.
quiet. Yeah, no, because it's pretty quiet. It's it's a different vibe,
Hmm.
you know. But it's I don't know. Honestly, Yukari's a vibe though. We be chatting it up all the time, so
So
it's a nice environment.
I was considering going to. So I had longer hair, and I was like, well, I grew it out for like almost 2 years, I think, and it was
Yeah,
like this giant fro, and it was crazy. And I was like, well, I didn't have a barber at the time, so I had moved to
yeah,
Philadelphia, and I couldn't find a good one that I liked. And I came back, and I was like, well, I could go to a salon because I don't know what looks good anymore on me.
yeah,
So, and I needed like a feminine touch to be like, okay, this will look good on you, Hunter. Don't do this. And I was like, well, I should do that. And then my friends were just like, one of my friends is like really into style and fashion. He's like, just get
yeah,
this. And I was like, okay. And I was with them in New York City, and we went to one of their
yeah,
barbers, and I just got a fade, and I was like, okay, it feels so much better with short hair. Why'd I grow it out?
yeah.
Um,
I'm dead.
but I don't get compliments like I used to. Every day in
Where?
the streets, people would come up to me like, oh my God, I love your hair. And I'd be like, thank you. And people would get like mad at me because like
Yeah,
weird women would come up to me and be like
I'm dead.
ask me about my hair, and
Yeah,
I was like trying to do something, like I had to like go, and then um some of them I think were like on drugs. It was in Philadelphia, and I'd be
I'm
like
dead.
in
Yeah,
bad areas, but they'd be
yeah.
like yelling at me like, you're just gonna walk away from me. I'd be like, leave me alone. I need to go over here,
The
please.
fact. No, I know the vibe. I know the vibe.
Please leave me. I need a haircut. Stop complimenting my hair. But no one does it anymore. So
Yeah,
now I feel like I need to go back. Like no one's going crazy for my hair anymore. So I must be doing something
yeah.
wrong.
I'm dead. I mean, you know. I mean, honestly, I can't commentate on that. I feel like I can't think of heads don't really be commentating on my hair. I just be doing like I got like the Mick Jagger cut or like a low key peso pluma with the longer sides. You know? Do you know peso pluma?
Beso Bluma.
Peso pluma. You don't be on Mexican music out here.
The only Spanish music I know is Aventura.
I'm
Aventura.
dead. Of
Be-
course, yeah.
because that's actually my friend, one of my best friends, Jeremy's. That's his fam. That's his like dad.
No
The
way.
Santos's. Yeah.
No way.
It's
His name
like
is Romeo Santos.
Romeo Santos is his dad's brother.
Is his
Um,
dad's
but
brother.
his dad is like the bass player, and his uncle's like
No
Lenny.
way.
Yeah,
Wait,
he's
is this Long Island like
no. This
stuff?
is Westchester.
This is Westchester?
They moved out of the city once they their story is actually
Yeah.
crazy. They were like broke as hell in the Bronx. Were like taking
No
buckets of
doubt.
boiling
Yeah.
water in buckets,
Yeah.
and they all like saw the kids had talent, all the adults,
Yeah.
and they was like, okay, go do it, and they did it, and now they all were able to
Wow.
get like a nice house in Westchester and not have to worry
Yeah.
about anything. But the dad is crazy.
That's
Friend Jeremy's dad is
hilarious.
crazy. He
I'm dead.
yeah, his MTV Music Award is fire. I like went to his house one time before I understood when I was younger. I
Yeah.
like went to his
Yeah.
house. I was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "What is this? Is this an MTV Music Award? This is fake, right?"
I'm
He's
dead.
like, "Nah, that's real." Like, what?
Nah, son. Yeah, yeah. That's royalty, bro. That's
Yeah,
Latino royalty.
yeah. And I was like, Jeremy, who are these people? Who was your dad? He's like, oh,
I'm
you know
dead.
Aventura? No.
No, the tour,
And then,
nah.
and then all like the Spanish people that went to my school like knew. They didn't know who Jeremy was though, so he didn't like
Yeah,
flaunt it. But then I went to just going to
yeah.
his house, met his dad, and he was like
I'm
iced out
dead.
in so many chains. I
No
was like,
man, for
what?
real.
So he was just like at home chilling on the couch and iced
Yeah,
out, and I was like,
I
now I had
saw.
to figure out what's going on. And so I started like doing a little research, and I was like, Jeremy, what the hell? Why
Yeah,
didn't you tell me this?
that's so fire, bro. Damn, that's a good. That's fire.
Yeah, I
Damn, I'm gonna
actually
have to.
did a
Wow.
Jeremy makes music
Yeah,
also. He's
yeah.
like
That's
up and
beautiful.
coming. He does some music
Yeah,
for
that's
like
beautiful.
production. And the
Yeah.
first music video I ever did was for Jeremy actually.
Yeah.
And I did it for free, of course, just because he was one of
Yeah.
my good friends, and we just did it. And then his dad and like all his uncles, not Romeo. Romeo did not is not posting this on his page, but
Yeah.
all of the other people from
Yeah.
Aventura posted it on their pages, and I was like, "What the heck? I'm on
Gas,
Aventura!"
bro. You're
Like,
so gassed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and the video wasn't even good. Like I went back like last year, and I
I'm
was like,
dead.
"This shit sucks, God." But now we're like talking like what to do next. I have a lot better ideas.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. That's exciting. I appreciate you sharing the story. This gave me so much life, man. That's hilarious. Like I'm gonna have to bow down before you. Like that's proper royalty that you close to.
I'll hear the Aventura in like barbershops all the time. That I go
Yeah,
to.
and
I'm
you're
like, oh,
like you don't
it's like
even
yeah.
know.
I'm just like, oh, I know this song. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say anything. I, I know this guitar riff. I know who's
yeah,
singing
yeah,
this right
yeah.
now.
I'm sick, bro.
Yeah.
That's jokes. I'm dying over here, man. I'm dying.
It's a it's a small world. You never know
It is.
what's gonna
It's a
happen.
small world. It's a small world. I can't
Yeah.
lie. I don't know if I can share a similar story at all. Like, I met a kid who. Did you ever watch The Get Down on Netflix? I went on
The
jury duty
Get
one
Down.
time, and I met a kid who was on the show. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Shout out to Ray. I think his name was Ray. Shout out to Ray. That kid was sweet. We got out of jury duty together that day.
How I just saw a show called Jury Duty, and that was pretty hilarious. If you ever heard of that.
I was
Uh,
actually speaking to your mom about her getting out of jury duty.
hmm.
You know,
I
it's a
do
tough
have
thing.
I do have one more, which only if I'll only mention if you know the guy. But do you know who
Yeah, go,
Styles
go, go.
P is?
Styles P. I'm gonna be honest with you. Off rip. No.
No, he's like this '80s '90s rapper it's from New York, like White Plains.
Yeah,
He was pretty popular. He's like known as like a rapper's rapper, really.
yeah.
Um, but he has a few like I get high, I get high, like that song. That Styles P. And I went to school with his son also.
I'm
This is
dead.
funny. Noah Styles.
No,
He makes
that's
good
a
music though.
fire
I really
name.
like Styles
Word.
P. Yeah. Well, I guess so. I asked you something I didn't. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Then we started talking about haircuts, and then we got to
Yeah.
this. I was going to ask you. Do you have any questions for me as the last question of the podcast? So
Yeah.
back. Okay, so back to the podcast time. Do you have any questions for me? We have to mark this.
Let me see. Do I have any questions? Jeez, this always maybe the most nerve wracking part because I'm like, all right, how can I be vulnerable in this way? Um, let's see. How do you? Oh man, jeez, I'm stumbling here. Wow, I have a lot of respect for what you do. I'm stumbling over my words now.
That's why I
I
have
gotta say,
notes.
all right, this will be one question, but I'll ask another one after this one.
Okay.
How long has the Moz House podcast been going?
Since July last year.
Since July of last year.
Yes.
How have you grown into it? Has it been a slow grow or like has it? You know what I mean?
Definitely. I've had a lot of good episodes and a couple of bad episodes, especially at the
Really?
beginning.
Is
And
it okay?
I think it was so I didn't know what to expect. I kind of just like ran into it and was just like, I need to do this, so I did
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And I would be really nervous at first
yeah,
during podcast. So I remember like my first couple. I remember this one my first in person podcast because we started it. We went back and we were doing a show called A Year of Firsts. So this was Mom's House
yeah,
first year being open,
yeah,
and that's after a year. That's when I came on and started working there.
yeah.
So I went back and interviewed every other artist in resident that we ever had.
Oh wow, that's sick.
And the first podcast actually went well.
Yeah,
And
that's
but then
okay.
we
That's
did the
good.
first in person podcast. I like got there and I like got a beer. I was like, well, I'm drinking this Corona right now.
I'm
Um,
dead. Get the nerves.
yeah, it's just
Loosen up
like
the mess of it.
yeah, loosen up a little bit. And it's kind of a funny story. Brianna was like home
Yeah,
at the time and like came downstairs and saw me like chugging chugging a Corona. She's like, "What are you doing?
I'm dead. I love Brianna. Yeah,
Taking a sip, Brianna. Leave me alone."
yeah,
So then after, but that definitely like helped the first time. Then I realized it wasn't very scary.
yeah. Okay, that's
And I wasn't
good.
like drunk or anything. I wasn't drunk in the first
Yeah,
podcast. I was just like, let me loosen up a bit. Because
yeah. No,
I feel like having a
yeah.
beer with someone is so casual. It's a
It's
good
casual.
icebreaker, and it's
I mean,
just
that's what
like
these are, right?
intimate.
Conversations.
Yeah, and you can just it's just like nice. It's like a nice thing to have. Um,
Yeah,
so that was the first one. Then the questions got a little bit better. I do use some of the questions that I first wrote down for my first
yeah.
podcast. Um, like
Like what's one?
how did you discover Mom's House?
That's
Um,
okay. That's a good one. Well, yeah. I mean, because it's all. I mean, it's I mean, it's grounded in Mazhas at the end of the day,
mhm.
right? It's all about that experience and the kind of gratitude of that moment.
And then one other big thing is
Yeah.
figuring out in the short time I'm allowed to have with the artist. Because sometimes I get to spend a lot of time with them. And in our case, we didn't get to spend any time with each
Yeah.
other,
Nah, man.
which
I
sucked.
low
I
key
wish we
wish.
did. I
I
did.
feel we
I
could
did
have
too.
chopped it up a little bit.
Yeah, I wish we did too. And because I like, especially with artists, if we have a good repertoire, or
Yeah,
then we get to make some cool videos
that's
and
true.
whatever. But sometimes me and the artist, not that we don't necessarily don't click or whatever, but
Yeah.
they aren't as silly as me or something, if that's even the right
Yeah.
word. Like I'm like, okay,
I
so we're
hear
gonna
you.
do
I hear
this.
you.
I'm like telling them what we're gonna do in the podcast, and then for in person podcasts, I like to play a game where we do
Yeah.
like a fantasy football draft, but of their art. So it's like
That sounds so interesting.
if someone makes like collages, let's say,
Yeah.
we would do a draft where they get the first pick and be like, okay, first pick, what do you make putting in your collage? We'd go back and forth and create like the ultimate collage or something,
No, I get what you
or the
mean.
ultimate
Yeah.
sculpture. And then
Yeah.
some people don't want to play that game. You're like, I don't want to be silly on an interview.
Heard.
I just
Yeah.
want to like be serious the whole time. So then I had to.
Yeah.
So it's really just like feeling it out.
Okay. So
What?
you feel like you have to manage the energy of of the space.
Yeah, a lot of
You
it
know.
is like matching the other person's energy. Like I put
Yeah.
out good energy at first, and then I can rein it in a little bit depending on
Yeah.
how they are. Um,
Yeah.
especially, and which is also like sometimes people are nervous at first, and
Yeah.
it's like recognizing that to where they want to go where you are. They can be silly and have fun, but they're just
Yeah.
like a little nervous right now. And
Yeah.
so, if as long as you're open, and if I do a little talking early on, and then make some
Yeah.
jokes, then they'll like getting the first someone who's a little nervous to laugh once is game over. Then now they're no longer
Right? No,
uncomfortable.
exactly. No, exactly.
So that's kind of how I've grown into it. And now I feel like I've gotten pretty good. I haven't had too many problems. I've only had a few in the past like 6 months. I'd say I'd have like one or two podcasts where I wasn't happy with.
Yeah, with the way you handled energy
Yeah, what I
with the
think.
field.
What do you think? Someone's mad at me for some reason. Like
Yeah.
in the podcast, I'm like, oh man, they're mad at me, and then it's
Yeah.
just in my head
No,
because
yeah.
that's
No,
what
but
they
I
just
get what
think.
you mean.
Because they just want to be more serious and like me ask like question after question, focusing on solely on their art, not really wanting to talk.
Yeah.
And
No, I get what
um,
you mean.
so yeah, but then I would go back and listen like, oh, they're not mad. They This is fine.
No,
Um,
it's just it's just professionalism, you know. I mean,
mhm,
on some level, I guess,
different
but I don't
levels.
know of a way of existing, of the way you want
Hmm.
to, because it is true, like people will listen, and as I guess as a guest as I am, you I guess you do have to consider how other people will perceive you based off this. Me, I'm a little calmer about it because I don't be I don't want to say I don't be professional, but I'd be very charitable all the time,
Hmm.
regardless. You know what I mean? As long as the space is safe to be charitable, Which obviously this space is pretty safe to be charitable.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want it to be nice, casual, fun, where people can like
Exactly.
get to
Yeah.
know you on a part that's like, a little deeper than. So I've like I completely respect artists who just want to get down to the nitty gritty and have like a nice
Yeah.
full professional interview because that's how
Yeah.
people perceive them and they want to keep like that's who their
Yeah.
fans are and they're seen as a
Yeah.
member of community and they just
Yeah.
like this is just what we have to do and I
Yeah.
am more than willing to do that, but this is more fun for me and I
Yeah.
think for other people when we can like talk about go off tangents, talk about like random crap, haircuts and
A
like
hundred
like
percent
that
right.
that's like we capture a little bit of the spice to life with that. Something that seems so rudimentary of like getting a haircut. For people,
Yeah.
it's such a big thing.
But it is right. It's a point of reference of that helps ground you in the listening experience.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure there's other people out there that feel the same way as me, who like really care about who they go to, and there's people who don't care at all, think it's so ridiculous, and might get a good laugh about it.
Nah,
Um,
they're crazy. I mean,
mhm.
man, if you're getting a fade, you need to get a good fade.
You do, you
You
really
know,
do.
you do. Otherwise, you get clowned.
Yeah, otherwise
You
your
know.
friends will notice, which I do
Yep.
appreciate. If they tell me that if it like doesn't look good, please do tell me, because then I won't go back. That's one thing I hate about. Sometimes my friends will be like, "Oh, it looks." My other friends are like, "Oh, it looks good." I'm like, "What the hell is that? Why would you do that?"
Yeah.
And then might seem mean in the moment, but I'm saving you from pain.
From the
Um,
pain of that experience of
yeah,
of getting fucking laughed at,
mhm.
from
It's not
some
just because like
stranger.
I don't like the haircut because like, but it's like they're usual what they usually do, but it just looks a little off this time for some reason.
Yeah.
Or if they wearing something so ridiculous, right? Which I'm it's there's a fine line between like not supporting your friends and being like means like why would you wear that? I
Yeah.
would never do that. It's more like you can't. I don't think you should wear something that bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
match. That's weird. I don't know.
No, I hear you. I mean, honestly, I think about the past. Like, oh my God. I like. Did you ever grow up using the word like cutting ass? You know, like to roast somebody. Like he cut your ass, so I'm about to cut your ass. You know what I mean?
I
You
think
ever
we
heard
do
that?
more. We kind of say you got chopped up.
You got chopped up? Heard. Well, like I honestly, I should have gotten chopped up a little bit back in the day. I was wearing some crazy stuff, man. You would have thought I was straight out of the Get Down. I ain't gonna lie.
Man,
I ain't gonna lie.
I get chopped up every time I step to the house with my friends because I'm very
Yeah,
unfashionable, but I'm getting
I
better.
bet.
I'm getting much better. Um, because I just didn't care back, and it wasn't a
Yeah,
problem. But now I'm getting
yeah,
older, and I have to like go to all these events. I have to look like I
yeah.
didn't
Look
just
the
roll out of
part.
bed. I had to like kind of look the part.
Yeah.
Um, especially when like people like have opens like when I'm just working one on one with the artist,
Oh
I can look however I
yeah,
want. But like when you have an event, I want
yeah,
people to be like, oh, that person looks like they're normal.
yeah, yeah,
So I've updated my wardrobe a little bit, and it looks better.
yeah.
And
Okay, that's fire. Okay. Well, I mean, I haven't met you yet. I can't wait for the day we meet.
yeah, hope. Well, I mean, when we meet, I'm gonna be dressed in my regalia, so you won't really see my
Oh, that's
fashion.
true.
but
That's true. That's
um,
true.
but like I'm really into jackets right now from this brand called
Yeah.
Kith. This brand called Kith, which actually is the
Are
one
you on
brand in New
Kith?
York.
Alright. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Kith right now. I don't know what it is, but they have such good quality stuff. It's expensive, but I like
Nah,
never
he's
spent
pricey.
money on clothes before,
Like
really.
the yeah. I
And
heard.
like I'm gonna have this stuff
Okay.
for a long time, so now I'm willing to like. My friends finally
Invest.
convinced me that they're like,
Yeah.
okay, if you buy something more expensive that's actually nice, not just like going buy like a Gucci shirt, like that's higher quality, but it's not gonna last forever. If you buy something
Exactly.
that's like a good brand, it's gonna be more expensive, but it will last you a lot longer and look better. And then you just gotta
That's
take care of
facts.
it.
That's facts. I mean, that's most things. That's most things in life, right? That's why I like
Yeah,
going on eBay. I do a lot of my shopping on eBay, getting deals, negotiating. I love eBay for clothing.
I love eBay for sneaker shopping. I used to be a huge
That's also
sneakerhead.
true. That's also true.
That was my only fashion. I'd like wear like the rattiest clothes, but have the nicest sneakers.
But you had the nicest. I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then
I'm dead.
it's just only it's just sneakers are just so cool. That was like my the Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse movie where he had like the shoes and they
Yeah.
talked about it. I felt like that kind of captured it well. It's like these are how I'm choosing to show my fashion world. Like I think these are cool. I don't really
I
cares
haven't
about
watched the
shirt and
movie
shorts.
yet, but
Oh
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, you haven't seen it. You got to watch it. It's
No,
good.
I haven't seen it yet.
That movie inspired me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard so many good things about it, especially with the
hmm
animation.
Yeah, I want to make animated stuff. I was thinking about doing animated segments of the podcasts because we don't do
That
video.
actually would be very. I'd be so curious about that.
Yeah, I was thinking like I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think the haircut talk we had would be a good like little part of the pod thing to animate, just like
That
because
is
I want
true.
it to be more funny parts animated. You can't
Yeah,
just animate us talking,
that's true.
but like
Me
telling
talking
like
about literacy.
yeah, but you can definitely animate like a story.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think that's one of the only things you can really animate. Like an interview, you can't really animate an interview. I mean, you could, but it
I
wouldn't
guess you
like
could, but it.
yeah,
I mean, you could. Maybe it'd be like those TED Talk animations. You know what I'm talking
yeah,
about? Like,
yeah,
yeah, I could
it
see
would
that.
be. But to get my most return out of the animation of someone who
I
doesn't,
get
I'd have
what
to
you
go
mean.
find someone. I'd have to do that.
No, I get what you mean.
Yes. All right. Well, that was the last question. We kind of did go. We just be yapping on the podcast, man.
Not
Here,
that
that
truly.
is okay. All right. Well, I think that's everything. All the main question I have for you. But at the end, podcast, like everyone to have the opportunity to plug in all their social medias, website, any programs you might want people to check out, any upcoming shows, anything. The floor is yours to say whatever you want.
Of course. Oh man. Well, I mean, I guess the easiest one is my social, right? My social is on Instagram is just Muruchu wa. My name, my last name being Muruchu. Just add a W A at the end. That's my Instagram. And honestly, man, I'm just be just painting, man. I'm gonna just be painting. I don't got anything coming up per se. I'm gonna just be at Rutgers, you know. Maybe catch me at Rutgers. I'll be out there in New Jersey. You know, I'm also be in the Bronx. Catch me in the Bronx. Otherwise, just shout out to you, to shout out to Hunter, shout out to Jeremy and Brianna, who really blessed me with their time and presence while I was there. You know, I didn't mention this in the podcast, but Brianna did like a very, very beautiful and very like it really gave me so much life. This walk around at the Parish Museum.
Mm,
It was so beautiful. No, so I feel very. I think about that moment a lot. I'm definitely gonna go back to the Parish next time
Parish is
I'm
very
in
cool.
Southampton. It's so stunning. So shout out to Brianna and Jeremy for real. And I really appreciate you for a very lovely conversation.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for being on. I'm glad we are able to finally get this done. Um, wish we were able to hang out a little bit more
Nah,
during your
I know,
residency,
I
but
know.
we'll have to save that for powwow.
That
That's exciting.
ass.
Look forward to that. What's your website called?
My website? Oh man, I have such an informal website. It's I believe it's just muruchu.myportfolio.com. I believe it
Okay.
should still be active, even though
Hmm.
I haven't done my Adobe payment. Yeah, but we'll see
I'll make sure be sure to link everything you mentioned in the description of the podcast.
for
Um,
sure.
well, to everyone who listened, oh my god, we did a 2 hour podcast almost. I'll have to cut this down a little bit, but thank you to everyone who made it to the end. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode of the Mouse House podcast.
Thank you so much for real.